Across the world, people vanish every day, but some cases defy all logic. No struggle, no evidence, just silence where answers should be. Families are left desperate, investigators baffled, and the public haunted by one chilling thought. How can someone disappear without a trace? In this video, we explore 5 people who vanished without a trace. Story 1. In January 2006, 24-year-old Jennifer Kesse was living in Orlando, Florida. She was described as responsible, ambitious, and devoted to her family and friends. Jennifer had recently purchased a condominium, was excelling in her career as finance manager at Central Florida Investments timeshare company in Ocoee, and had just returned from a romantic vacation with her boyfriend. By all accounts, her future looked bright. On Monday, January 23, 2006, at 6 p.m., Jennifer called her parents after leaving work. Later that evening, at 10 p.m., she spoke with her boyfriend on the phone, making him the last known person to have contact with her before she disappeared. The following morning, Tuesday, January 24th, Jennifer failed to call her boyfriend, as she usually did, and did not arrive at work. Calls to her phone went directly to voicemail. At 11 a.m., her employer, concerned by her unusual absence, contacted her parents. They immediately began driving from Tampa to Orlando. On the way, they asked the condo manager to check her unit. He reported that everything appeared normal inside, but Jennifer's car was missing. At around 12 p.m., surveillance cameras captured an unidentified person abandoning her 2004 Chevy Malibu just 1.2 miles from her home. However, this footage was not discovered until 2 days later. By 3 p.m., Jennifer's parents and brother arrived at her apartment. Inside, they found signs that she had been home that morning. They called the police, who at first considered the possibility that Jennifer had left on her own. That evening, between 5 and 7 p.m., her family and friends distributed flyers around the area while investigators began searches and interviews. On Thursday, January 26th, at 8:10 a.m., police confirmed that Jennifer's car had been abandoned and examined the surveillance video showing the unknown individual calmly walking away after parking it. This footage remains one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. Over the years, several theories have been considered. One is abduction by a stranger. At the time, Jennifer's condo complex was undergoing renovations, and many construction workers were present on site. Some residents later reported feeling uneasy around certain workers, leading investigators to explore the idea that Jennifer may have been followed or confronted as she left for work. Another theory suggests a crime of opportunity, that she may have been approached as she was leaving, forced into her car, and driven away. The fact that her car was later abandoned so close to her home suggests the person responsible may not have wanted to risk being seen driving it for long. Investigators also looked into the possibility of a targeted crime by someone she knew. Her ex-boyfriends and acquaintances were questioned, but none were ever charged. Her boyfriend at the time was ruled out through phone records and alibis. Still, some believe that someone within her circle could have been involved and successfully concealed their role. Perhaps the most haunting element of the case remains the grainy surveillance footage. The figure who parked Jennifer's car has never been identified. Their casual walk away raises troubling questions. Were they directly responsible for Jennifer's disappearance, or were they simply someone who came across her car afterward? Nearly 2 decades later, the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse continues to baffle investigators and devastate her loved ones. No arrests have ever been made, and no definitive answers have been uncovered. Did Jennifer fall victim to someone at her condo complex? Was she abducted by a stranger with chilling precision? Or was the truth hidden by someone much closer than anyone suspects? What do you think happened to Jennifer Kesse on that January morning in 2006? To this day, no one knows what really happened, and the truth may still be out there. Story 2. Brian Schaffer was born on February 11, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio. Known for his intelligence, charisma, and easygoing personality, he grew up in a loving family with his parents, Randy and Renee, and younger brother Derek. By his mid-20s, Brian was a medical student at Ohio State University with a bright future ahead. But in 2006, his life took a tragic turn into one of the most baffling mysteries of modern times. Brian pursued higher education at Ohio State University, earning a degree in microbiology. Following his passion for medicine, he was accepted into the Ohio State University College of Medicine in 2004. By the spring of 2006, at 27 years old, he was a second-year medical student. Despite the long hours and demanding workload, he was excelling academically and was well-liked by classmates and professors. During his time in medical school, Brian was in a committed relationship with Alexis Wagoner, a fellow student. Friends say the two were inseparable. By early 2006, Brian was even rumored to be considering a marriage proposal to Alexis, possibly during their upcoming spring break trip to Miami, a plan that makes his disappearance even more tragic. But Brian's life was not without hardships. Just 3 weeks before he vanished, his mother, Renee, passed away after a long battle with myelodysplasia. Her loss devastated Brian, though those who knew him said he remained hopeful and was leaning on Alexis and his father for support. On the night of Friday, March 31st, 2006, Brian decided to take a break from studying and went out in Columbus to celebrate the start of spring break. That evening, he had dinner with his father, Randy, then met his friend, William Clint Florence, for drinks at several bars before ending up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a popular bar in the city's Arena district. Surveillance footage captured Brian entering the Ugly Tuna around 1:15 a.m. on April 1st. Later, he was seen stepping outside briefly with 2 women before going back inside. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. Cameras captured him near the bar's entrance, but strangely, there was no footage of him ever leaving the building. When Brian failed to board his scheduled flight to Miami with Alexis on Monday, April 3rd, the alarm quickly spread. Alexis, who had been calling and texting him all weekend, realized something was terribly wrong. Police began reviewing hours of surveillance footage from the Ugly Tuna and nearby establishments. Still, there was no sign of Brian exiting. Investigators thoroughly searched the bar, as were nearby streets, alleys, and even the sewer system. No signs of struggle, no physical evidence, and no witnesses. It was as if Brian had entered the Ugly Tuna Saloona and vanished into thin air. Over the years, investigators and internet sleuths have proposed several theories. One is that Brian slipped out unnoticed through a back exit that was under construction and poorly monitored. Another is that he was the victim of foul play after leaving the bar, perhaps lured away, attacked, or met with a tragic accident. Others believe he may have chosen to disappear, overwhelmed by grief after his mother's death. But those who knew Brian, especially Alexis, argue this theory doesn't align with his character. especially considering the possibility that he was preparing to propose. Perhaps the most chilling detail remains the surveillance footage. We see him enter, we see him return inside, but there is no record of him ever leaving. How does someone vanish from a crowded bar in the heart of a busy nightlife district under the watch of multiple cameras? Brian Schaffer's disappearance remains one of the most enduring mysteries in modern true crime. Did Brian slip away to start a new life? Did tragedy strike after he walked out at an unmonitored exit? Or is there an answer hidden within the walls of the Ugly Tuna Saloon itself? For almost 20 years, his family, friends, and Alexis are still searching for answers. Could even the smallest detail bring us closer to solving one of Ohio's most haunting mysteries? Story 3. Mora Murray was born on May 4th, 1982, in Hanson, Massachusetts, the youngest of 5 children. Bright, athletic, and determined, she excelled in school and track before pursuing nursing at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. At just 21 years old, she seemed to have a promising future until her sudden disappearance in February 2004 turned her life into one of the nation's most enduring mysteries. On the evening of February 9, 2004, Maura abruptly left her dorm at UMass Amherst. She emailed her professors, claiming she would be away for a week due to a family emergency, though no such emergency existed. Instead, she packed personal belongings, withdrew cash from an ATM, and drove off in her father's old Saturn sedan. By nightfall, she was several hours north in rural New Hampshire. At around 7:30 p.m., her car skidded off a snowy road near Haverhill. A nearby resident witnessed the crash and called the police, but when officers arrived minutes later, Maura was gone. Inside the vehicle, investigators found her belongings, an open alcohol container, and printed directions to Vermont. Yet there were no footprints in the snow leading away from the car, no signs of a struggle, and no indication of where she had gone. Search dogs, helicopters, and volunteers combed the area, but no trace of Maura was ever recovered. The disappearance quickly gained national attention. A young woman vanished within minutes of a crash, leaving behind a trail of evidence, but no clear answers. Over the years, multiple theories have tried to explain what happened. One possibility is abduction by a stranger. In such a remote area, someone could have stopped under the guise of offering help. The narrow window between her last confirmed sighting and the arrival of police makes this chilling scenario plausible. Another theory is that Maura staged her own disappearance. She had been struggling academically, faced disciplinary issues, and had tensions in her relationship. Some believe she intended to leave everything behind and start over. Yet, despite extensive investigation, no proof has ever surfaced that she began a new life elsewhere. A third possibility is that she succumbed to the elements. It was a frigid February night, and if she left the car disoriented or intoxicated, she could have wandered into the woods. But despite thorough searches, no remains or belongings were found. Some have speculated that someone closer to her life may have been involved. Rumors suggested she might have been traveling to meet a friend or confidant, raising questions about whether that person held back the full truth. What makes the case so haunting is the complete absence of answers. The crash was real, the clues were real, but everything after that moment remains an unsettling mystery. Years later, the disappearance of Mora Murray endures as one of America's most baffling cold cases. How could a 21-year-old nursing student vanish from a rural road within minutes, leaving her car locked and belongings behind? Was she escaping her old life, the victim of a crime, or lost to the elements? To this day, The truth about what happened to Mora Murray remains unknown. Story 4. On March 21, 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley vanished while vacationing with her family aboard the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas. The trip had been won by her father, Ron, as an all-expenses-paid prize from his employer, making it a dream vacation for the Bradleys, who were from Chesterfield, Virginia. Amy, described as independent, athletic, and deeply close to her family, was looking forward to the getaway. On the night of March 23rd, Amy and her brother, Brad, spent time at the ship's dance club before returning to their cabin around 1:30 a.m. Brad recalled chatting briefly before they both went to bed. Around 5:30 a.m., Ron woke up and saw Amy resting on the balcony. Less than an hour later, when he checked again, she was gone. Her shoes, cigarettes, and lighter were still inside the cabin, suggesting she hadn't planned to be away for long. At first, her family thought she might be wandering the ship, but as hours passed, concern turned to panic. Despite their pleas, the crew did not immediately organize a full search or stop passengers from leaving when the ship docked in Curaçao. By the time authorities were contacted, critical hours had already passed. Amy was never seen on the ship again, yet over the years, chilling and fragmented reports suggested she may not have left by choice. Witnesses recalled seeing her with crew members shortly before her disappearance, raising suspicions that she may have been targeted. A U.S. Navy sailor later claimed he encountered her in a Curaçao brothel, where she allegedly begged for help before being led away. Others claim to have seen a woman resembling Amy on a beach and even in a department store. None of these sightings was ever confirmed, but they fueled the painful belief that Amy may have been taken and forced into a life far from the one she knew. Another theory is that Amy accidentally fell overboard, a conclusion often cited by cruise lines in missing passenger cases, but her family strongly disputes this idea. Amy was a trained lifeguard and a strong swimmer. And the fact that her belongings remained in the cabin indicates she hadn't planned to leave for long. They are convinced it is highly unlikely she slipped or wandered near the ship's railings in the dark. There is also speculation that someone she met on the ship lured her away. Crew members reportedly showed unusual interest in Amy, and one even admitted to asking about her whereabouts after she vanished. If true, it raises troubling concerns about the safety of passengers aboard cruise liners and the lack of oversight in international waters. What makes Amy's case especially haunting is that she is not the only person to disappear under mysterious circumstances at sea. Her story underscores how crimes in international waters can be overlooked, delayed, or left unresolved. For more than 25 years, the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley remains one of the most chilling mysteries linked to cruise travel. Was she taken against her will, hidden in unfamiliar places far from home? Or does the truth lie somewhere in between, lost to missed opportunities and unanswered questions? Story 5. Jason Jolkowski was born on June 24, 1981, in Grand Island, Nebraska. His family later moved to Omaha, where Jason and his younger brother Michael grew up in a typical suburban household with their loving parents, Kelly and Jim. Jason was known as a kind, quiet young man, though he had a learning disability that sometimes made it difficult for him to concentrate and focus, and his extreme shyness made eye contact hard for him. Through these circumstances, Jason was also remarkably intelligent. He lived at home while attending community college and worked part-time at a local radio station with dreams of one day building a career in broadcasting. On the morning of June 13th, 2001, Jason's routine day suddenly turned into one of Nebraska's greatest mysteries. 19 years old at the time, Jason was scheduled to work a shift at a nearby fast food restaurant. With his car in the shop, he arranged to meet a co-worker at Benson High School, just 7 blocks, or about a 15-minute walk from his house. Around 10:45 a.m., a neighbor saw him outside, briefly helping move garbage cans into the garage. After that, Jason began walking toward the high school. He never arrived. His co-worker waited, but Jason never showed. He didn't pick up his paycheck, never returned home, and never contacted anyone again. Police launched a massive search of the neighborhood, but no trace of Jason was found. He seemed to vanish in broad daylight along a short residential walk without leaving behind a single clue. No personal belongings were recovered. No witnesses came forward. No surveillance footage ever surfaced. It was as if Jason simply disappeared into thin air. Theories about what happened have haunted investigators and his family for more than 2 decades. One possibility is abduction. Despite it being daytime, Jason's route was quiet enough for someone to intercept him and force him into a vehicle unnoticed. Others wonder if foul play came from someone he knew, though no evidence has ever supported that. A voluntary disappearance has also been suggested, but Jason's family strongly disputes this. He had money left untouched in his bank account, a good relationship with his parents and brother, and never gave any sign of wanting to leave. To this day, Jason Jolkowski's case is considered the most baffling disappearance in Nebraska's history. His story has been featured in true crime discussions and even dedicated podcast episodes, keeping his memory and the mystery alive for new audiences. Jason's family has never stopped searching for answers. For them, it remains unthinkable that a young man, walking just 7 blocks to meet a co-worker, could vanish without leaving a single trace. What happened to Jason on that June morning in 2001 is still unknown, and the silence surrounding his disappearance continues to weigh heavily on everyone who knew him. From quiet neighborhoods to remote roads, from cruise ships to crowded bars, these stories remind us of a chilling truth. Disappearance can strike anywhere, at any time. Each case lingers with the same unsettling questions. How can someone be here in one moment and gone the next? What vital piece of the puzzle are we still overlooking? And will time bring answers, or keep these mysteries locked away forever? Which of these stories do you believe will one day find resolution, and which will remain among the countless lives that simply vanished?